Hi, this is a new Nigeria with Olawale Oluwade. In today's edition of the program, I will be speaking on what I've titled "How to Kill a Nation," any nation for that matter. How to kill a nation. But before I get into the presentation, I need to take a few minutes and watch this video. Please watch.
If you have an OB as a president today, the opposition will come from the southwest and the northern part of Nigeria. It has always been that. When Buhari was the president of this country, the north was silent, and that's many in the north were silent. And even at a certain time, when I stood up in the parliament, in the Senate, to raise issues about insecurity and killings of my people, the first serious resistance and opposition I get is from senators from northern part of Nigeria, because at that time they are expected to be quiet and to enable the system to be silent, to also embrace whatever it is, because the president comes from your own part of the country. And that any attempt for you to raise objection to the killings in the north, to the poverty in the north, to the out-of-school children issues in the north when Buhari was there, you'll be reminded that you shouldn't damage the image of the president, since you are coming from that part of the country. In fact, this is the only president I've seen. The culture in the southwest is different, that people from the southwest are speaking out. And I think they are setting a standard for people from all parts of the country, that it does not mean when your own is in power, you should not be able to speak the truth. Our refusal to speak the truth to Buhari regime, our refusal to tell him where he is wrong, led to the north to where it is today.
Okay, so the person speaking, the speaker in this video is former Senator Shehu Sani, representing Kaduna Central from 2015-2019 in the Nigerian Senate. He is also a former civil rights activist. Now, he is 100% correct when he said northern Nigeria was silent during Buhari's 8 years misgovernance. But when he says northern Nigeria, I need to make a clarification that does not include north central. Definitely, because people from Plateau and Benue states, including some parts of Nasarawa state, that suffered a heavy brunt from terrorist headsmen, massacred quite a number of them, and Buhari did nothing, said nothing, in fact was complicit in his tacit support of the killings, and also he is also just partially, correct in saying Yorubas or Southwest people are criticizing Bola Ahmed Tinubu. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu enjoys, serious, fanatical, loyal support from a section of Southwest Yoruba people, So I would say 50-50, 50% for him, 50%, don't support him. A staunch critic of the president. I don't have any personal animus against him, but I totally, disagree with his leadership style, his governance choices, and all of that, Now, one common trait, to every nationality in Nigeria is a near universal corporate code of silence, otherwise called the conspiracy, silence, to all the nationalities or tribes in Nigeria. Whenever they have someone from their section in government, they see no evil, they hear no evil, no condemnation, no criticisms, But even worse is to come out to actually support or encourage, the perpetration of evil and impunity in governance, just for the sake of ethnic affiliation or pecuniary benefits. And that makes me to substantially agree with, the saying or the thought that Nigerians generally do not have any, abhorrence, or hatred, for corruption or bad governance. We don't. We just tend to have, to find our voices when it is not our person, who is in government. Now, getting into the substance of my presentation today, a human being who has a challenge with the truth is called a liar, and Scripture says no liar will enter heaven. When truth dies in a nation or an organization, such begins a slow but steady slide onto death. I know, and so many banks. I've been a private sector person all my life. all my professional life. So I know so many organizations, banks, insurance companies, private companies, even public companies, Nigerian Airways, NEPA and all of that died because, of lack of, governance, the truth speaking. I've been a victim of speaking the truth, speaking out, and being, evicted and being ejected and all of that, So to kill any nation, such as Nigeria, or guess what, even America, because this MAGA madness that is going on, all you need to do to kill any nation is to begin to promote lies, deceit, sycophancy, and propaganda under the guise of useless and vain loyalty, misplaced obedience, and dubious patriotism. Now, truth is absolute. There's no such thing as relative truth. Truth has no relativity. It is either whatever you're saying is true or it is false. And truth is an essential attribute of the divine essence that is God. Jesus said this in John 8:26. It is why if you're a liar, you're most likely not a child of God. Jesus often rebuked the Pharisees and Sadducees, the religious leaders of his day, saying to them in John 8:43-47, for instance, that they were like their father Satan. He called the fathers of the religious leaders of his day, he called their father Satan. He called Satan a murderer. He called Satan the inventor. He says Satan is the inventor of lies, and that Satan is the father of all liars. The paraphrase is mine. You can read it, John chapter 8 from verses 43-47. So now, as there are three, forces, that bear witness in heaven, God, His Word, and the Holy Spirit, so it is on the earth. On this earth, three forces rule and bear witness in human affairs: love, truth, and justice. Now, what witness do these three bear and affirm? That is, what witness does love, truth, and justice bear and affirm? That in any nation where these three are honored and revered, any nation that honors and revere, truth, that is love, truth, and justice, that nation is a nation that is under God. And though a nation, conversely, mouths platitudes, empty platitudes and cliches about God, but they do not have love, truth, and justice, in manifest reverence, or worship, such a nation does not know God and is not under the reign of God. That is a hard saying. It's the reason why even if you build thousands of places of worship and millions throng these places of worship daily or weekly, if these three forces, love, truth, and justice, do not reign, such a nation is not a godly nation. Now, what I just explained briefly is the central theme I explored in my seminar book, God and Nigerians. You can see the picture. Now, you can see the image here. You can Google it on you can get a copy of it, buy a copy of it on Amazon, hard copy, paperback, and even Kindle edition is available on Amazon. Explosive stuff. The foreword was written by a very brilliant Chief Audu Ogbe. Now, so love is the first supreme force governing on this earth. To love others as ourselves, not more or less. To do unto others as you will they do unto you. This is one universal law that binds all the Abrahamic or monotheistic faiths. Have we fulfilled this in Nigeria? If we did, why are the rich and powerful men's children in the best schools abroad and even here in Nigeria, while the children of the poor are begging with bowls on the streets and scavenging for leftover foods from trash bins? Why? In a strange but extremely perverse and cruel twist of irony, all the present leaders of Nigeria were once children of dirt-poor parents, but who were lifted from generational poverty and misery by our independence leaders. Yet, this same crop of leaders, currently, are the ones who are unable and unwilling to demonstrate or extend same gesture of love or compassion to others. What people are we? Now, going further, those who love speak the truth. To love lying is a proof you lack the capacity for love. And there is no partial or relative truth. I said that before. It is either true, whatever you're saying is either true or it is false. God is love, God is truth, and God is justice. And if you speak the truth, surely you would uphold the cause of justice. If you are given to the truth, you would surely uphold the cause of justice. What justice? Justice for the weak. You would uphold the cause of justice for the weak, for the defenseless, for the oppressed, for the marginalized, justice for the abused, justice for the trampled upon. you would ensure and insist or demand for justice for the 15 to 20 million out of school children. You would demand for justice for those murdered in cold blood while on their farms and in their bedrooms. Even if the bedrooms is those thatched huts, those mud houses we've all seen. You would demand for justice for those lynched and burnt, because they share kinship with those we love to hate. You would demand for justice for those robbed of their rights and dignity, by various governments. Justice for the tortured, justice for the tormented and kidnapped, justice for the tortured and tormented, sometimes killed by kidnappers, terrorists, bandits, armed robbers, ritualists, drug barons and peddlers, and scammers even. Now, if we were invested in a cause of truth and justice, we wouldn't invent such unjust and ungodly policies, inverted commas, of reforming terrorists, bandits, and killers. No, we wouldn't do that. Rather, we would arrest, and prosecute this, and when they are convicted, apply the punishment swiftly and decisively. Thereafter, each of these persons, can find peace with their maker. However, they can make peace with their maker. But, and that is the way we as a state, affirm and strengthen the cause of justice and guarantee and ensure, that the wheels of justice has no limiting cogs, but runs ever so smoothly. And the temple of justice, going further, is the temple of God. To sit as a judge, therefore, in a court of law and pronounce lies, evil, and ungodliness, thereby granting perverse victory to the wicked, and unjust, is a desecration of God's holy sanctuary. Judges need to hear this. To sit as a judge in a court of law and grant, and pronounce lies, evil, and ungodliness, thereby granting perverse victory to the wicked and unjust, is a desecration of God's holy sanctuary. To sit in the highest court in the land, our Supreme Court, and condemn to death a person, a man acting in self-defense, is a perversion of natural justice. To sit in our Supreme Court, and by a magic wand make a man who came fourth, in an election, or any contest for that matter, make the man who came fourth to become first, and make the one who came first suddenly become, last. That isn't just despicable. That isn't just a despicable conduct, but worse, it is the sowing of evil seeds, which in due time will surely return bountiful harvest. A nation without truth, cannot have justice. And wherever justice is absent, self-help, chaos, impunity, and anarchy are certain corollaries, and they shall definitely reign supreme. Does what I just described not sound like or remind you of Nigeria currently? Now, some thoughts on justice and truth. The great Fulani military leader, Islamic teacher, author, poet, and philosopher, Sheikh Usman Danfodio, this is what he said, and I quote, "A kingdom can endure with unbelief, but it cannot endure injustice." End of quote. Decades ago, I encountered the seminal work of one of the world's greatest moral, legal, and political philosophers, the great American John Rawls, author of A Theory of Justice in 1971. The book was written in 1971. Here are some of his thoughts on the values of justice on a society. Number one, and I quote, "Justice is the first virtue of social institutions." Justice is the first virtue of social institutions. I believe love followed by truth and justice. But he says justice is the first. It does not matter. The ordering does not matter. We both agree. Justice is one of the key, forces or principles that govern and regulate, human conduct. Number two, quote from this man. He says, "The bad man," I quote, "the bad man desires arbitrary power. What moves the evil man is the love for injustice." I mean, you see them, in our society in Nigeria. You see men drunk, intoxicated with power, arbitrary power. You see them demonstrate or manifest, display their megalomania, insulting our sensibilities with their megalomania, because we are like conquered people. Now, another quote from this guy. He says, "A just society is a society that if you knew everything about it, you'll be willing to enter it in a random place." Almost 2 decades ago, I had opportunity to get permanent residency or citizenship of the United States. I prayed about it and I turned it down. You know, when recently the spate of killings, brutal killings, heinous killings of African American men on the streets like dogs in America, shooting them to death like dogs, I told myself, Wale, you dodged a bullet. You know, now on the contrary, as I sit here, if I get an offer, you know, to move, you know, as permanent resident or citizen of any of these Scandinavian countries, Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Iceland, I would go with just the bare clothes on my back. I wouldn't even take anything besides my documents, my certificates and stuff, because of stories about the Scandinavia, how they place premium emphasis. You know, they place a premium on human dignity and human existence, the welfare, social welfare of their people. They place it at the supreme, you know, level. Now, another point from this guy, he says, a society regulated by public sense of justice is inherently a stable society. Is Nigeria regulated by a public sense of justice? Because even people in the public space, you would see them a few years ago condemning the public officials for bad conduct, for bad behavior. But just toss a bone at them, give them something to bite on, and they begin to say the exact opposite of what they're saying. And guess what? Nigeria loves men without morals, men without principles, men without, you know, scruples. Dishonorable people. These are the people we celebrate and turn them to heroes in Nigeria. You know, so where are our men, you know, who have an acute, you know, sense of public justice? Where are they? Now, the immortal Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., this is what he said: injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. I am a Nigerian, but first a Yoruba man. But I am passionate about justice everywhere. This is why I rail and rant, you know, about goings on in Zamfara, in Katsina, in Southern Kaduna, in Plateau, in Jos, in Benue. That's why I rail against bad governance. Because if I don't speak against it, it will come to my doorstep, as it is already. Where is safe in Nigeria? Where? Nowhere is safe again in Nigeria. Now, also, Charles Darwin, great English biologist and evolution theorist, said, I quote, "A republic cannot succeed till it contains a certain body of men imbued with the principles of justice and honor." Do we have such in our National Assembly or in the judiciary? Do we have such in our political parties, in our religious bodies, even in our families? Do we have men imbued with the principles of justice and honor? Do we have such? That somebody can declare a state of emergency and remove an elected governor of a state, and the National Assembly, rather than stop the president, say, no, you cannot do this, actually rubber stamped it. Hopefully, the judiciary will redeem whatever is left, whatever modicum of honor and decency that is left in our society. I hope the Supreme Court, when they, you know, intervene on this matter, you know, I hope. Now, finally, Jesus Christ stated, "And you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." Now, I've spoken. What are you going to do with what you have heard here? Continue lying, spinning facts, engaging in useless propaganda, or speak the truth, even if heaven falls? You know, people see my videos, some of the trolls of the government, they come in and say all sort of absolute hogwash. You know, they spin truth on its head. Or people DM me privately on WhatsApp and say all sort of junk, absolute junk. You know, try to spin facts. How do you spin facts? Can you spin the truth? Like I said, there's no relative truth. That's the fact. Look at Nigeria. That's what brought us here. Look at Nigeria. What are you going to do? Continue lying and engaging in propaganda because of pecuniary interest or benefits? You know, speak the truth. Heaven is not going to fall. You know, heaven shall not fall for speaking the truth. Rather, nations that worship lies and injustice, they die. You want to kill any nation? Begin to engage in lies, in sycophancy, in propaganda. You would succeed in killing such a nation. That's how nations are killed. Lies, propaganda. You know, that's what killed Nazi Germany until they were resurrected. That's what killed Italy's Mussolini. That's what killed the USSR under Joseph Stalin. That's what killed them. And people died because of lies, deceit, sycophancy, and propaganda. Speak the truth. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Thank you. Have a great day.